Hey everyone, welcome back to Marketing Ninja Unleashed. This is Season 4, Episode 3. If you're new here, I'm Rena, founder of You and Your Story, and this podcast is where we strip marketing right back to what actually matters. And that is clarity, connection, and confidence. Today's episode is strategic, but also quite personal, because over the last year, I've noticed something shifting in me. Not dramatically, definitely not overnight, but steadily. I've been thinking a lot about fear, confidence, and growth, and how those things actually show up in business. So today, I want to talk about 4 things that are connected in more ways than you might expect. First of all, imposter syndrome, and how I realized it's far more normal than any of us admit. Secondly, how I've changed as a person, especially as someone who's always been described as shy. Third, why service businesses need to create memorable experiences, not just deliver services. And I know I've talked about this before, but it's so important. And finally, why nurture series are one of the most underrated tools in marketing and how to structure one properly. So grab your coffee or continue your walk and let's get into it. I want to start with imposter syndrome. For a long time, I thought imposter syndrome was something that happened when you weren't good enough yet. Like it was a signal that you needed more experience. But recently, I went to a MALA event, and MALA is the Midlands Asian Lawyers Association that I'm now a committee member of. The event was in Birmingham, and it was focused on the challenges faced by South Asian lawyers and barristers. They talked about barriers, expectations, pressures, identity, and something that came up repeatedly in the room was self-doubt. These were highly accomplished professionals, senior lawyers, intelligent people, and they were openly talking about feeling like they didn't quite belong. That hit home for me because it made me realize that imposter syndrome isn't a lack of ability, it's fear. It's your brain trying to keep you safe. So now, when I feel it, I don't label it as I'm not good enough. I recognize it as a fear of growth, a fear of visibility, and a fear of stepping up. And now I've started to put tactics in place to help me get through this, because it keeps coming back. Sometimes it's as simple as asking, what's the worst that can actually happen? Or reminding myself that I've done these things before. Or even just acknowledging it instead of fighting it. The most important thing for me is to say it out loud. Because the truth is, imposter syndrome doesn't disappear when you grow. It tends to appear because you're growing, and that's not a bad thing. It keeps you humble. And it means you remind yourself of your journey every so often. And that's a completely different way of looking at it. So hopefully that helps you get through it too. Moving on to me and my personal journey. If you'd told the younger version of me that I'd say yes to being on Christopher Watkins' video podcast, I would have laughed. The introvert in me would have said absolutely not. That shy girl who didn't put her hand up in class, she wouldn't have agreed to be interviewed by Podcast Foundry either. But something has shifted. I haven't become louder. I haven't suddenly become fearless, but I have become more willing. Willing to say yes before I feel completely ready. Willing to trust that I know what I'm talking about. Willing to step outside of my comfort zone instead of sitting in it. And I think growth as a business owner is deeply personal. Your business cannot outgrow you. So if you're playing small, your business will too. I'm learning that stepping forward, even when it feels uncomfortable, is where expansion happens. And honestly, for me, it feels like this is just the beginning. One of the things that I have realized that has helped me along the way is actually creating something memorable, and especially when you're a service business. So I want to talk about something that sometimes service businesses underestimate: an experience. When I helped organise the MALA Ball last year, people described it as an Indian wedding without the bride and groom. And honestly, that was the best description. The outfits were stunning. The food was incredible. There was music, dancing, laughter, speeches. There was energy in the room. It wasn't just an event. It was an experience. And that was MALA's intention. This is their flagship event, and they want people to look forward to it because that's how they get their funding. Now that I'm on their committee, I see the other side. I see that in January, when we launched the new website, the number of people who signed up for marketing shot up because people were excited to find out when the ball was, and it's not until October. That's what brands need to create, a reason for customers, supporters to get excited about them. The most recent example for me personally was watching the Harlem Globetrotters 100-year tour on the 27th of February. It wasn't a typical basketball game. It was a well-choreographed show. It was girl power, skill, comedy, drama, audience interaction, music that actually made me want to move. Even a little bit of fear, yes. There were moments where you genuinely thought you might get soaked with water. It engaged so many senses and made sure I will never forget it. And that's what great service businesses need to think about. You're not just delivering a service, you're creating a memory. So next time you plan an event, or you're even thinking about your client experience, ask yourself, what are they going to remember? What will they talk about afterwards? How is this going to feel? Because people will forget facts. They don't forget how you made them feel. And I know I've said this 100 times before, but it is so true. Work on building emotion in your customers and they'll come back to you naturally.
Buying a car can feel like guesswork. Is it really the right price, or should you wait? With Car Gurus, you get unbiased deal ratings, price change history, and trusted dealer reviews, so you can spot a great deal and buy with confidence. Go to cargurus.co.uk for complete vehicle details without any surprises. That's cargurus.co.uk. cargurus.co.uk. Car Gurus. Search, buy, sell, sorted.
Finally, let's talk about nurturing. Once you've created the perfect experience and people are excited by your brand and they sign up to your marketing, you want to make them feel loved. Otherwise, you'll lose them. And after all that hard work that you've put into getting them interested, that's completely lost. One of the first nurture series that I ever introduced was when I worked at Police Mutual. And we were collecting data whilst we were at police stations with a breakfast or a lunch trailer. So when somebody signed up to our email database, we didn't just send them random newsletters, we created a journey. The first email acknowledged how we met them, usually at 6 a.m. after a very long shift, and that helped to build that instant connection with them. It made them remember that we gave them a breakfast sandwich when they'd had a tough night and they really needed it. The second introduced the brand, not in a salesy way at all, just talking about who we are and why we exist. The third slowly introduce the products, ones that would actually help them, savings, insurance, healthcare. And after that, communication became personalised based on what they clicked on and what they were interested in. It wasn't pushy, it was structured. And that structure made all the difference. So imagine that you meet someone at an event tomorrow. They sign up to your marketing. You need to build a nurture series to make them feel like they want to interact with you. Let's start with email 1. It should feel warm and human, with something along the lines of, lovely to meet you at wherever that was. Remind them of that conversation. Email 2 might share your story, why you do what you do. Email 3 could share a useful piece of insight or a common mistake that people make. Email 4 might include a testimonial or a case study. And email 5 takes them to the next step. It tells them what they need to do to continue working with you, whether that's follow you on social media or head over to your website. But it doesn't need to be right now. It doesn't need to be all together. It doesn't need to be aggressive, just consistent. Because nurturing builds awareness, knowledge builds trust, and trust builds business. So today, we've talked about fear and growth, about stepping outside your comfort zone, about creating memorable experiences, and about nurturing relationships properly. They're all about intentional growth, recognizing fear but moving anyway, creating experiences that people remember, building trust slowly instead of chasing quick wins. And if there's one thing that I've learned this year, it's this. Growth doesn't happen by accident. It happens when you choose to step forward, even when it feels uncomfortable. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for supporting this podcast. Whether you've been here since season 1 or you've just joined, I genuinely appreciate you. And as always, You and Your Story is here to make sure your story is the one the world won't forget.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.